when entitled rich girl looked down on a waitress at a cafe. She had no idea their worlds would collide in a shocking twist. But as she stepped into her father's luxurious mansion, she was about to encounter an unexpected face. The question was, what was she doing there? Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to stay updated for more thrilling stories. The golden afternoon light poured into the marble-floored cafe, casting a soft glow over the elegant crowd. Amelia Hayes, the only daughter of one of the wealthiest men in the city, sat at a corner table dressed in designer clothes, her diamond bracelet catching the light like a tiny sun. She tapped her manicured nails on the table impatiently. "Ugh, where is that waitress?" she muttered under her breath, glancing at her phone. The waitress arrived, a young African-American woman with kind eyes and a calm smile. Her name tag read Naomi. "Sorry for the wait, ma'am. We're a little short-staffed today," Naomi said politely. Amelia rolled her eyes. "Clearly, maybe if you moved faster, you wouldn't be short-staffed." Naomi's smile faltered for just a moment. She bit her tongue, taking the comment in silence. She was used to rudeness, but something in Amelia's tone stung more than usual. Still, she kept her voice gentle. "I'll do my best to make your experience better." Amelia sighed dramatically. "Whatever. Just make sure the coffee's hot this time." Naomi nodded, retreating toward the counter. But as she walked away, Amelia's friend whispered, loud enough for Naomi to hear, "I don't get why they hire people like her in places like this." Naomi's hands trembled as she poured the coffee, but she lifted her chin. "Don't let them see you break," she told herself. "You've been through worse." That evening, after the cafe closed, Naomi hurried to the bus stop. The chill wind carried whispers of rain as she hugged her thin jacket tighter. Her shift had been long, her feet ached, but she smiled faintly when she looked at a photo on her phone. A little boy with bright eyes and missing front teeth. "Mama's gonna make things better for you, Jordan," she promised silently. The next day, the Hayes mansion glittered with preparations for an extravagant charity gala. Amelia floated around in a silver gown, pretending to be interested in her father's event, though she mostly cared about who would notice her dress. "Sweetheart," her father said, rushing by with a stack of papers, "make sure you greet our guests politely tonight. This event is for the scholarship program. We're partnering with a few organizations that help single parents and service workers get education grants." Amelia groaned. "Right, scholarships. Got it." As the guests began to arrive, Amelia plastered on her best fake smile. But then, her heart froze. Standing at the grand entrance, wearing a simple but elegant dress, was Naomi, the same waitress she had mocked just the day before. Naomi looked radiant, confident, graceful, entirely out of place yet perfectly composed. She was speaking with Amelia's father, who seemed genuinely delighted to see her. "Naomi, I'm so glad you could make it," he said warmly. "Everyone, this is Naomi Carter, one of our new scholarship recipients. She's going to study business management this fall." Amelia's throat went dry. Scholarship recipient? Her father knew her? Naomi's eyes met Amelia's across the room. There was no bitterness there, only quiet strength. She smiled politely, as though nothing had happened. Amelia looked away, her chest tightening with something she couldn't name. Shame, confusion, maybe admiration. Later that night, unable to stop herself, she found Naomi on the balcony overlooking the city lights. "Naomi, Amelia started, her voice small. Naomi turned, her expression calm but unreadable. "You don't need to say anything, Amelia." "No, I do," Amelia said, swallowing hard. "I was awful to you. You didn't deserve that. I didn't know." Naomi shook her head gently. "You didn't have to know my story to treat me with kindness." Amelia's eyes stung. "You're right. I'm sorry." Naomi gave a faint, forgiving smile. "Thank you. And for what it's worth, your father has been one of my biggest supporters. He gave me a chance when I thought no one would." Amelia blinked, startled. "My father did?" Naomi nodded. "He said he knew my mother a long time ago. She worked for your family." She paused, her eyes softening. "He said he wanted to make things right." Amelia's pulse quickened. "Wait, what do you mean he knew your mother?" Naomi hesitated, glancing toward the ballroom where Amelia's father was speaking with guests. Maybe it's better if he tells you himself. Before Amelia could respond, her father's voice echoed across the room, announcing, "Tonight, I'd like to share a story, one I've kept secret for far too long." Amelia turned toward him, her heart pounding. Naomi stood silently beside her, her expression solemn. And in that moment, as the crowd hushed and her father took the microphone, Amelia felt her world tilt. The grand chandelier sparkled above as Mr. Hayes tapped the microphone. A hush fell over the ballroom, a silence thick enough to hear the tremble in his breath. "Before we celebrate tonight's success," he began, his voice steady but heavy, "I need to share something personal. Something I should have said a long time ago." Amelia stood frozen near the back, her hands clasped tight. Naomi stood beside her, posture calm, but her eyes filled with quiet anticipation. Mr. Hayes scanned the crowd, then continued. "Years ago, when I was just starting my company, there was a woman who worked for my family, a kind, hard-working woman named Grace Carter." Naomi's breath caught. Amelia glanced at her sharply. Mr. Hayes's eyes softened. Grace was more than an employee. She was a friend. When she faced hard times, I promised I'd look out for her and her daughter. But I failed to keep that promise. Grace passed away before I ever had the chance to make things right. Gasps rippled through the room. Amelia's stomach turned cold. Her father turned toward Naomi. "Naomi Carter is Grace's daughter. And this scholarship program, it's dedicated to her mother's memory." Naomi's eyes shimmered with emotion. The crowd erupted in applause, some out of admiration, others out of surprise. Amelia's world, however, spun in slow motion. She could barely breathe. Her father knew Naomi's mother. He'd hidden this? When the applause faded, Amelia stepped forward, her voice shaking. "Dad, why didn't you ever tell me?" Mr. Hayes turned to her, his eyes weary. "Because, Amelia, there's more to this story than you think." Naomi looked between them, uneasy. "Mr. Hayes, maybe we shouldn't." But he raised a hand gently. It's time the truth came out. He hesitated, glancing at Naomi. Grace wasn't just a friend, Amelia. The room seemed to shrink. She was someone I cared for deeply. Amelia's heart dropped. "What are you saying?" Mr. Hayes's gaze flicked toward Naomi, and his voice broke as he said softly, "Naomi isn't just a scholarship recipient. She's family." A stunned silence blanketed the room. Naomi's eyes widened. "Family?" she whispered. "Yes," he said quietly. "Naomi, you're my daughter." The words hung in the air like a lightning strike. Amelia's vision blurred. "No, that can't." She stumbled backward, her breath coming fast. "You're saying she's my half-sister." Mr. Hayes finished, his voice trembling. Naomi stood frozen, the revelation washing over her in waves. A tear slipped down her cheek, not from anger, but from a grief she'd carried alone for too long. Amelia felt something inside her shatter. Pride, confusion, guilt, all crashing together. She turned and fled through the balcony doors, her heels clattering on the marble. Naomi followed, calling out softly, "Amelia, wait." Outside, the night air was cool and sharp. The city glittered below them like scattered diamonds. Amelia gripped the railing, trembling. "You knew, didn't you?" she whispered. "You knew before tonight." Naomi shook her head. "I swear I didn't. I had no idea until he said it." Amelia turned toward her, tears streaking her cheeks. "How am I supposed to believe that? Everything I said to you, everything I did." Naomi took a step closer. "We can't change the past, but maybe we can start again." Before Amelia could answer, the balcony doors burst open. Her father stood there, pale, panicked. "Girls," he said urgently, "we need to go inside. Now." Amelia frowned. "Dad, what's going on?" But before he could speak, a man in a dark suit stepped out of the shadows at the edge of the garden, eyes fixed on Mr. Hayes. Naomi saw the glint of something metallic in his hand. "Dad!" Amelia cried. The man raised his arm. And then, bang! The sound tore through the night. Screams echoed from inside the ballroom. The chandelier trembled. Naomi dropped to her knees beside Amelia's father, her shaking hands reaching out. "Dad! Oh God, Dad!" Amelia screamed. But as Naomi turned toward the garden lights, she saw the man running, and in his hand, something gleamed under the moonlight, something that looked disturbingly familiar. Naomi froze, her mind racing. "No," she whispered. "That can't be." Amelia looked at her in confusion. "Naomi, what do you mean?" Naomi's lips parted, her voice barely a breath. That's my mother's locket, the one I buried with her." The sirens wailed in the distance, slicing through the night air as paramedics rushed into the Hayes mansion. Guests huddled together, their glittering gowns and tuxedos now smeared with fear instead of grace. Amelia clung to Naomi's arm, shaking. "He's going to be okay, right? He has to be okay." Naomi pressed her trembling hands over the wound in Mr. Hayes' shoulder. "The bullet missed his heart," she whispered, her voice breaking. "He's lucky. We need to keep pressure. Stay with me, Amelia." Her father's eyes fluttered open for a brief moment. "Naomi," he rasped. "In my office. Safe box." "What? What's in a box?" Naomi asked urgently, but his eyes closed again as the medics lifted him onto a stretcher. Amelia grabbed Naomi's hand. "Come on," she said, voice shaky. "He meant for us to find it." The house was chaos, security shouting orders, police taking statements. But Amelia and Naomi slipped quietly toward Mr. Hayes' private study, their hearts pounding. Inside, the air was still, heavy with the scent of leather and old paper. His desk was immaculate except for a single framed photograph, a young woman smiling at the camera. Grace Carter. Naomi touched the photo gently. "That's her," she said softly. "My mom. She looks kind," Amelia whispered. "I wish I'd met her before." Naomi nodded, blinking away tears. Then she spotted the safe, hidden behind a portrait. "He said safe box, right?" Amelia nodded, stepping closer. "I know the code. 0-7-1-5. His birthday." The lock clicked open with a metallic snap. Inside were papers, a few photographs, and a small velvet box tied with a faded ribbon. Naomi reached for it, hands shaking. Inside the box lay an old gold locket, identical to the one Naomi saw in the gunman's hand. Her breath caught. "That's impossible." Amelia frowned. "You said your mother's locket was buried with her." "It was." Naomi's voice was barely a whisper. "I watched it go into the ground." Amelia picked up one of the papers from the safe, a birth certificate. Her eyes widened. "Naomi, look at this." The document was aged, the ink faded, but clear enough to read. Under father's name, it said Charles Hayes. Under mother's name, not Grace Carter, but Elena White. Naomi's stomach twisted. "That's not my mother's name." Amelia looked at her wide-eyed. "Then who is Elena White?" Before Naomi could answer, the study door creaked. They both froze. Footsteps. A man's silhouette appeared in the doorway. Tall, sharp, familiar. The same man from the garden. Naomi's pulse thundered. "You, how did you get in here?" The man stepped into the light, his voice cold. "You shouldn't have opened that safe." Amelia grabbed Naomi's wrist, pulling her back. "What do you want?" He smirked. "What your father owes me, and what he stole from her." He pointed at the photo of Grace Carter. Naomi's heart pounded. "Who are you?" He stepped closer, his face finally visible. "The name's Marcus White," he said. "Elena White was my sister." Amelia's breath hitched. "Then you're saying—" Marcus cut her off. "Grace Carter wasn't who you think she was. Neither was your father." He leaned in, eyes glinting. "And that locket? It's the key to everything he tried to hide." Naomi stared at him, confusion and dread twisting in her chest. "The key to what?" Marcus smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "To the reason your mother died." A window shattered behind them. The lights flickered. When Amelia turned back, Marcus was gone. Only the scent of gunpowder lingered in the air. Naomi clutched the locket to her chest, her fingers trembling. "Amelia," she whispered. "What is it?" Naomi opened the locket, and inside was a folded scrap of paper with a single handwritten line. "Meet me where it all began, before the fire." Amelia's voice cracked. "What fire?" Naomi's eyes widened as realization dawned. "The old Hayes estate, the one that burned down 20 years ago." Amelia turned pale. "But that place was destroyed." Naomi looked out the dark window, clutching the locket tightly. Maybe not everything was. The next morning dawned gray and restless. A thin fog curled around the edges of the city like ghostly fingers, and Amelia hadn't slept. She sat at the window of her father's hospital room, watching him breathe through an oxygen mask, his face pale and still. Naomi stood silently at the foot of the bed, holding the locket in her palm like a fragile promise. "They said he'll wake up soon," she murmured. "But what if Marcus comes back before then?" Amelia turned, her voice rough. "Then we find out what he's after before he does." Naomi met her gaze. "You think the message in the locket is real?" "I don't know," Amelia admitted. "But if where it all began means what I think it does, then it's the old estate." Naomi exhaled. "The one that burned down when you were a kid?" Amelia nodded slowly. "Dad never talked about it. So it was an accident, said it was too painful." She looked at Naomi. "But if your mom and Marcus are connected to it somehow?" Naomi's eyes hardened with determination. "Then that fire wasn't an accident." The drive to the old Hayes estate took them 2 hours along a winding country road. As the car slowed, the ruins appeared through the fog, a charred skeleton of stone and ivy, surrounded by twisted trees. The air smelled faintly of ash, even after 2 decades. Naomi shivered. "It feels wrong here." Amelia nodded. "I haven't been back since I was 6. Her voice faltered. "I remember sirens, smoke, my dad carrying me out. He wouldn't let me look back." They stepped through the crumbling gate, their footsteps crunching on broken glass and scorched wood. Birds didn't sing here, just a faint whisper of wind through hollow windows. Naomi knelt near what used to be a grand staircase. "Look," she said, pointing. "There's something under the rubble." Together they pulled aside the debris, revealing a trapdoor, its metal blackened by fire but still intact. Amelia's eyes widened. A cellar. Naomi brushed soot from a small plaque on the door. The inscription read, "For safekeeping, G.C." Naomi's breath caught. G.C. Grace Carter. Amelia swallowed hard. "Your mother hid something here." Naomi tried the handle, locked. But when she pressed the locket against the metal clasp, there was a soft click. The door creaked open, releasing a breath of stale air. They exchanged a terrified glance before descending the narrow stairs into the darkness below. At the bottom was a small stone room, untouched by fire. Shelves lined the walls, filled with old ledgers, boxes, and photographs preserved in plastic. Naomi ran her fingers over one box labeled H, Foundation Records, 2004. "That's my birth year," she whispered. She opened it. Inside were stacks of documents, and at the top, a photograph that made Amelia's stomach twist. It was a picture of her father standing beside Grace Carter, holding a baby. Naomi stared, her voice trembling. "That's me." Amelia's hands shook as she lifted another photo. Her father again, but this time with another woman. A woman who looked like Grace but wasn't. The name written on the back read, Elena White. Naomi's eyes widened. Marcus's sister. Amelia nodded slowly. "And look, the dates." These photos were taken the same year. They looked at each other, realization dawning. Their father had been involved with both women at once. Naomi's face paled. So that's what he meant by trying to make things right. He betrayed them both. Before Amelia could respond, a sudden thud echoed above them. Footsteps, heavy and deliberate. Naomi froze. "Did you hear that?" Amelia whispered. "We're not alone." The light from their phone flashlights trembled as dust fell from the ceiling. Another thud, closer. Then a voice, calm and chilling, drifted down the stairs. "I told you not to open that door." Naomi's heart stopped. "Marcus!" A shadow appeared at the top of the stairwell. But before they could move, something clattered down the steps, hitting the floor with a hiss. Smoke. Tear gas. Naomi coughed, grabbing Amelia's hand. "We have to get out." But through the haze, she saw Marcus step into the cellar, gun in hand, a cruel smile on his lips. "I warned your father what would happen if he kept lying," he said. "Now you get to pay for his sins." He raised the gun, but before he could fire, a voice shouted from behind him. "Put it down, Marcus." Naomi's eyes widened through the smoke. "Dad." Mr. Hayes stood in the doorway, pale and wounded, clutching his arm, somehow there, somehow awake. Marcus turned slowly, sneering. "You should have stayed in your hospital bed, Charles." Mr. Hayes took a shaky step forward. "Let them go. This isn't what Grace wanted." Marcus's eyes burned. "Don't you dare say her name." The tension crackled like static. The smoke thickened. Naomi clutched Amelia's hand, and suddenly, her flashlight beam caught something gleaming on the floor behind Marcus. A metal canister. Naomi's eyes widened in horror. "Dad, he's going to—" Boom! The explosion tore through the cellar, throwing them backward into the dark. Smoke curled up through the cracked ceiling as silence fell over the ruins. For a moment, there was nothing. No sound, no movement, only the flicker of orange flame licking at the edges of old paper. Then a cough. Naomi pushed a fallen beam off her shoulder, wincing as she crawled through the debris. "Amelia!" she cried, her voice hoarse. A groan answered from nearby. Amelia lay half-buried under a piece of wood, blood trickling from a cut on her forehead. I'm okay," she gasped. "Dad, where's Dad?" Naomi scanned the smoke-choked room. The spot where Mr. Hayes had stood was now a crater of smoldering debris. "No," Naomi whispered, shaking her head. "He can't be." Before she could move, she heard it, a faint, ragged breath. She scrambled toward the sound and found him pinned beneath part of the cellar wall. His face was pale but alive. "Dad!" Amelia cried, rushing to his side. He opened his eyes weakly. "Get the box," he rasped. "Don't let him destroy it." Naomi looked around frantically until she spotted a half-burned metal case lying near the shattered table. She grabbed it, coughing through the smoke. Inside were several documents, some charred, others still intact, and one sealed envelope marked confidential, Grace Carter Trust. Amelia glanced at it, confused. "A trust fund?" Naomi shook her head. "Not just that. Look, there's another name." Under Grace Carter's signature, scrawled in faded ink, were the words, "Held jointly with CH and EW." Naomi's eyes widened. "CH. Charles Hayes. EW. Elena White." Her voice trembled. They weren't rivals. They were partners. Mr. Hayes coughed, his voice weak. "We started a project, a foundation, to protect children from trafficking. Grace found out it was being corrupted from the inside. Someone, a loud crack, interrupted him, the ceiling groaning under the weight above. Amelia grabbed his arm. "Dad, we have to move." But Mr. Hayes grabbed Naomi's wrist with surprising strength. "Grace found proof," he whispered. "It's in the trust documents. Marcus wants to erase it all." Naomi held his gaze. "Then we'll stop him." Mr. Hayes nodded faintly. "Go. Save yourselves. I'll—" But before he could finish, another explosion rocked the cellar, smaller but enough to bring the ceiling crashing down. Naomi and Amelia screamed as they dove for cover. When the dust settled, they found themselves separated from the far side of the room, a wall of fire and rubble between them and their father. "Dad!" Amelia screamed, pounding the stones. No answer. Naomi grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the stairs. "We have to go now." They stumbled upward through the smoke, emerging into the gray daylight. The entire ruins smoldered behind them like a grave. Naomi clutched the metal box to her chest as they collapsed near the car. He said the documents. "We have them," Amelia gasped. "We can prove what Marcus did." But as she turned toward the woods, her words froze in her throat. Marcus was standing there, soot-streaked, blood on his cheek, but alive. He smiled coldly. "You should have stayed in that fire." Naomi stepped in front of Amelia, defiant. "It's over, Marcus. We know the truth." "Do you?" he asked softly. "Then tell me this, Naomi. Why do you think your mother hid you in that foundation?" Naomi blinked, stunned. "What are you talking about?" Marcus tilted his head. "Did Charles never tell you? Did Grace never tell you?" His smile darkened. "You weren't just part of their secret. You were the secret." Amelia's voice shook. "What does that mean?" Marcus stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Ask yourself why your birth certificate has two mothers' names." Naomi's pulse stopped cold. "To what?" Marcus's eyes gleamed. "Grace Carter didn't give birth to you." Naomi stared, her entire world tilting. You're lying. Am I? Marcus smirked, glancing at the metal box in her hands. Open it. See who you really are. Naomi looked down at the box, trembling. She hesitated, then slowly lifted the latch. Inside was a single unburned folder labeled Project Nova, Subject 014. Naomi froze. Subject? She whispered. Marcus's smile widened. Welcome to the real reason your mother died. And before either of them could react, he raised his gun. Bang! Naomi screamed. The box fell from her hands. Papers scattered into the wind. As the echo faded, one blood-stained page fluttered to the ground beside her, and on it, in bold letters, it read, Biological Parent, Elena White. Naomi's trembling fingers brushed the page. Her voice cracked into the silence. No, that can't be. From somewhere behind her, Amelia whispered, terrified, Naomi, look. Naomi turned and froze. Marcus was gone, but someone else was standing at the edge of the trees. A woman, alive, and she was wearing Grace Carter's necklace. The smoke had faded by morning. Where the old Hayes estate once stood, only soft gray ash remained, but for the first time in decades, the air there didn't feel heavy. It felt clean. Naomi sat beside Amelia on the back of the ambulance, both wrapped in blankets, watching the sunrise break over the hills. Its light spilled across the ruins like a promise that the darkness was done. Mr. Hayes rested nearby, weak but alive. Grace stood a few feet away, hands trembling slightly, her eyes fixed on Naomi. It was as if years of silence were breaking apart with the dawn. Naomi rose and walked to her, step by step, until she stood face to face with the mother she'd thought she lost. You saved me, Naomi whispered. Even when I didn't know who I was, you never stopped protecting me. Grace's voice trembled. I made mistakes, Naomi, but I never stopped loving you. Not for a single day. Naomi took her hand. I know. For the first time, Grace smiled. Not the guarded smile of someone hiding pain, but one filled with peace. This time we both stopped running from the past. Amelia walked up, eyes glistening. We all should, she said softly. Maybe it's not about who we were born as, but who we choose to be now. The three of them, bound by truth, scarred by lies, yet standing together, turned as the paramedics lifted Mr. Hayes from the stretcher. His hand reached out weakly toward them. Grace, he murmured. Naomi, Amelia, I don't deserve forgiveness. Naomi knelt beside him, tears falling freely. You don't have to deserve it, she said. You just have to accept it. For the first time, his expression softened into a quiet, grateful smile. Then maybe there's hope for us after all. 3 months later, the once-forgotten lot on the edge of town was alive with sound, hammers, laughter, and the rhythm of new beginnings. Where the old estate had burned, a new building rose. The Carter Hayes Center for Hope. Naomi stood at the front with Amelia and Grace as the crowd gathered for the grand opening. Children played with balloons. Reporters took pictures. The mayor gave a speech about resilience and redemption. But Naomi's heart was focused on something else entirely, family. When it was her turn to speak, she stepped up to the microphone, voice steady but full of emotion. For a long time, she began, I thought my story was one of pain, of secrets, loss, and betrayal. But now I see it was really a story about second chances. She glanced at her father, sitting beside Grace, and then at Amelia, who smiled through tears. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past, Naomi continued. It transforms it. It turns what was broken into something beautiful, something worth building again. The crowd clapped softly, moved. Naomi smiled through her tears. This center is for anyone who's ever been lost, hurt, or afraid to start over. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let the light in where the fire once was. The audience stood and cheered as Amelia and Naomi cut the ribbon together, laughter and applause echoing through the air. Grace wrapped her arms around them both. You did it, she whispered. You turned ashes into hope. Naomi smiled, leaning into her embrace. We did. As the sun dipped low and golden light bathed the new center, Naomi walked to a small memorial garden nearby. A single plaque stood among flowers and stones. In memory of Grace Carter, love never dies, it only grows. Naomi knelt, setting the old locket beneath it, the one that had once held so many secrets. This time, it was a symbol of peace. She looked up at the horizon, her heart full. "Thank you, Mom," she whispered. Then Amelia's laughter rang out behind her. Naomi turned, her sister waving her over, children running around her in play. Naomi smiled, wiped her tears, and walked toward them. The past had burned, but the future, the one they built together, shone brighter than any fire ever could.